Hi everyone, so I'm Najib and this is the Sunny Side Up podcast. Today we have a guest that is kind of behind the scenes of a lot of talents that you see around, of a lot of events that you see around. As a teaser, I would just throw in Dubai Bling, and here we are. Karin Drane, how are you?
What an introduction, thank you.
Look, a lot of people might say, okay, what do you have to do with Dubai Bling? Or like, is there any talent in Dubai Bling that you would manage? I just want to throw this as a teaser, and we're not going to start with it. I'd like to introduce you back and go back to your studies. And this is something that's super interesting. That when I was like, when we met the first time and I heard, what did you major in?
Well, so I studied law.
Yeah, but then?
And then I felt a bit bored with that. So I took up criminology as well, which, to be fair, I thought that was like CSI, right? Like crime scene and stuff.
Yes.
It ended up just being like statistics, crime prevention, and really like text heavy. So then I was stuck studying 2 degrees in parallel, none of them which was very fulfilling. Yeah. I mean, I did like law, don't get me wrong. I loved it. And I think I would have been a fairly good lawyer. But the idea of being restricted to one country, or if you move, you have to retrain and taking years licenses. And so on. I felt like I needed to be able to move around a bit more, because then I thought I wanted to live in one country for a few years. Then,
Karin, if you go back to like your last year of school and you want to just enroll in university now, like you're in Sweden, you're just thinking what to do. Yeah. What would you do? Like, what would you major in now?
Oh, that's a tough one. Probably business.
Business.
Yeah.
And would you like recreate the same path? Like you would travel, come to Dubai, study?
I don't know. I think that was very, it wasn't planned. Like I had my entire life mapped out, essentially. I thought I was going to do totally different studies. So I did languages as a major in high school. And my plan was to move to my grandfather, who was at that time living in Spain. And I was then going to study to become an interpreter. And then my plan was to get on the diplomat program or ambassador program. So that was my plan for life. But unfortunately, he passed away. So my life basically was turned upside down. And since I had to stay in Sweden, I was like, well, I don't want to waste time. So hence I'll go into law. But I think if I had a rerun, I think it was so circumstantial that I ended up in Dubai as well. It was purely because of my boyfriend at the time told me about Dubai. He was a stock analyst. So he told me if I ever want to study outside at that point, he's like, you have to do Middle East because there's a crash coming and you'll be safe there. So everything was like circumstantial.
You remind me, a lot of people came to Dubai for like a week and a month, and then they ended up living for the next 10 years.
100%.
How long have you been here?
Since 2007.
Since 2000. And how do you see it? Like it has changed. It feels more home?
I think I've always felt it like home. Even from when I visited before I moved here. Like when we flew in daytime. And I just felt the connect. Like, I know it sounds a bit like spiritual, but like I just felt such a vibe with the city. And I've always felt like this was home.
And you really integrated within the culture, I would say. Yeah, your previous husband is an Emirati.
Yeah, and my daughters are Emiratis. Yeah.
And how do you see it, a Swedish culture versus the Emirati culture? Was it hard to kind of accommodate certain traditions, values, or do you feel like no? It's because a lot of people kind of are reluctant to do that culture mix.
Yeah.
If you're European and there's an Arab, you kind of ask these questions.
Yeah. I think either which way you cut it, in the end, I'm an immigrant. We can call me an expat, right? But I'm an immigrant. So if I move somewhere, I have to A, like the place and what it stands for, and B, I have an obligation to understand the culture and religion, which is in the space that I choose. It's not my... I don't have any right to be here, but it's a privilege for me to be here. So I think it was natural for me to have a curiosity, but I think also there was so many good examples. The people I met, I've always been quite open-minded, meeting people left, right, center. So I had a very good impression of the people here.
I always, when I have like couples marrying in different cultures, I always ask about humor.
Yeah.
Because humor usually is very well built in the local language, and there's like a sense of humor.
Yeah.
But was it easy to like have a common humor? English, I suppose, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think my Arabic is okay, but I don't think he agrees.
Do you speak Arabic?
I understand a lot.
Okay.
I understand a lot. I do speak some.
The Emirati dialect?
Yeah, of course.
Like
So-
a hi?
No, I usually do my icebreaker. I'm like, أنا فهمت تقريبا كل شيء بس ما أقدر أتكلم وايد زين.
That's like so surprising.
Yeah, but I have the ones like, you know, the easy ones,
normal
and
ones.
I can understand a lot. Like I can sit through a meeting where people are conversing in Arabic. If I reply in English, I will probably understand 80%, like no
Okay.
word of a lie. So I'm getting there.
And your daughters, you mentioned, do you speak to them in English, of course, but then do you teach them Swedish and Arabic?
Swedish, no. I mean, I do speak Swedish with them sometimes, but English was the priority. The Arabic, no. I mean, I do some that I'm really sure, but otherwise that's like blind leading the blind. So
Yeah,
I shouldn't really.
exactly.
It's not my position. But the ones I'm sure of, yeah.
Karin, on the business side, now of course we know you're like a working mom, a twin mom, but you do a lot of stuff on the business side. One, you run Curveball Events, which is one of the biggest event companies around MENA, but you also run a talent management agency where you manage talents. I just want to know if there's a kind of a common denominator between both these, and which kind of started first, and how did you move into the next one?
So they're both a part of the same company. They've become really segmented lately. As the years passed, it was very clear that, I started with just managing Chris Fade, and my core was events, organizing. And I already at that time had really big clients that, I was one person with one employee when I took Majid Al Futtaim from really established event companies and got to pitch on projects for them. So after a while, though, I realized that they had to be separate. And then as we took on more and more people, they have the same core values, but they are separate in identities, if that makes sense. But everything is under one umbrella.
And today you run them under the same umbrella to this point, and there is no conflict of interest. I believe they complement each other very well.
Yeah. It's like two departments within the same company.
So let's say, for example, at Dubai Bling, they contact you. You then say, okay, I'm gonna speak to Chris about it. So this is how it happens.
Not exactly. I mean, I would love to take credit, but I really can't. When it comes to my talents, they do all the work. They do the networking. They keep in contact with people. So I am more a custodian of the inquiries. So Netflix wouldn't come to me. They would reach out directly to Chris. They would have initial talks, and then they would be like, yo, talk to Karin and figure out the things.
Which also keeps the celebrities out of that financial legal talk that
100%.
Usually they're not very comfortable with.
But there's more, and I think also, it's an entire machinery, like it's not only about the rates or talking the uncomfortable numbers. It's a lot of other things, like who keeps track of your availability, the briefs, do we have all the information, conveying it, when are we going to film it? Changes, locations, who are the contact people, more coming work, conflicts of interest, up and coming. Like there's so many elements within this. And especially when you get to this level, like if we wanted to, we could work every day of the week, multiple projects, and we don't, because then we would die, like we can't continue like that. But there's such an insane amount of inquiries coming in. You need an entire team. Like initially, maybe you can handle it yourself, and then eventually you'll start dropping the ball on things. You forget who paid you, or you have to chase after people. It's also some kind of like, who wants to ask for your money when you worked for it? Like let somebody else do that. Like my finance team does that. So there's so many variables, and also at some point you reach a level where you need someone with you when you go to an event. Like, you can't rock up there alone. Like, there's too much noise in that sense, like different instructions, and like it's nice to have someone or a couple of people that come there that help out with everything, make sure that the mic, the stage, everything, so they can focus on what they're good at, you know. Exactly. Which is entertaining and connecting with people.
And Karin, how do you choose the talent, or how does at this point, I think a lot of talents would approach and say, look, like, this is what I do. Like, what's the added value if you kind of manage me? Like, how does this happen at that level?
So I think in my case, I'm not really looking to take on more talents, and it's been like that for a very long time. Since I started with Chris, that was naturally because I booked him for an event and we got along so well. And then he brought up the topic. I said, I have no idea how to manage you, like none, no clue. But he just said that, like, these things are industry specific, sales and all the rest you can do. So, like, let's try it. And that's how we started our journey, like more than 9 years ago now. But with the others, of course, Pretty Malik, it's his co-host, so she came on because of him, and so on and so forth. So it's grown organically, but it's like a clique of people, right? And the common denominators there is that they are phenomenal entertainers. They're not just, you know, and I'm not saying it to belittle content creators, absolutely not. But like, they are so well-rounded in everything they do. They're extremely creative people that it works really well with our expertise in the event background and, you know, live events and so on and so forth. So that's why we're working with them, and we're not really looking for more talents. So I'm not really choosing.
And you didn't go into the influencer management kind of business, or did you try it with all that rise that happened a couple of years ago?
I have a couple that will be announced soon that we're working with, and I respect anyone who works hard. So whether they're an influencer, I know it has like a negative connotation, but I respect the influencer field. I don't respect sellouts. I don't respect people that create inauthentic content or, you know, try to sell products they don't believe in. I have no respect for any business person that does that, right? But I have to respect, and I have to be fascinated by a 15-year-old that can amass millions of followers by something that maybe I wouldn't do naturally. It's my duty to find out why and how.
Yeah, I think influencers did really, you know, build that kind of stereotype where people would say, I don't want to be an influencer. But being an influencer is something really good. I mean, you're influencing people.
And it's beautiful.
To do something better.
Imagine being in control of your days, you know? And also, I met phenomenal content creators that are so dedicated in what they do that they make a lot of like career people look bad. You know, I'm talking, they're so dedicated and they're like mid-20s. They are so organized in how they produce their content.
They're a one-man company.
They have producing days. So for instance, they batch produce, you know, they take an entire day every week and they just sit 8 hours to create 5 to 8 pieces of content so that when they have a bad day, they still have content.
Yeah.
Like, please, was I doing that when I was 25?
No. You Maybe remind me of Nas Daily. Like, this is how the guy started, the 1 minute video.
Yeah.
Now, you know, there's a term called de-influencers, where where they actually de-influence you of a product. So they would come and say, okay, well, you know, Red Bull's so bad. Red Bull's not good for your health.
Please. Hey,
it's just an example.
Where is the animosity coming from?
No, that's just an example. So they would come and say, okay, this product is bad. It's not good for your health, etc., etc. So instead of influencing you towards buying the product, they de-influencing you towards not buying the product or not doing the experience.
What a way of living, complaining about things.
Yeah.
I would find that draining.
It is ranting, like completely.
But you can rant in a fun way, right? But like to bash a product, like, wow, is that your life purpose?
Yeah, they do it. I think the term is also because you do it honestly. Like, you actually try that cream, and if it's not good, you actually say it's not good, rather than just you know, just being authentic. I feel that's like
authenticity is key. I feel 100% agree with you. I just think that, you know, rather than putting negativity out, if it's something that doesn't work for you, find something that works for you, and put out positivity in the world.
You seem like a risk taker, like someone that would actually take the leap without looking at the finish line.
Maybe a little.
Yeah, like I've seen like Sweden, then come here, law, criminology, then event, talent. Like, how do you take those jumps? Like whatever opportunity comes your way, you're like,
I'm open-minded, you know. I think you should live life to the max. I just think you should go for it, you know. Always.
Yeah, and do you feel like you want to do what you're doing for the rest of your life, or you'd feel like, no, like I just want to do something new now?
That's an interesting question. I think as well, for me, I've been approached a couple of times, like with serious offers for investment or to be bought out completely. And that makes you think, right? Like, is this something that you would continue doing? Or is this, all right, just sell out and go after a few years of managing, right? I think my conclusion is that I want to be part of it. By nature, I love learning new things. I love trying new things. So I think I'm definitely going to go into multiple other fields for sure. But I don't think one thing excludes the other. I will still always be involved in my company, I think, irrespective of we get investment or not. Like, I think I will always be part of the family. But I think also there comes a point where you actually have to hire people that are better than you are at what you're doing. And especially maybe when you're reaching that point where you've been many years in your business, what used to excite me 9 years ago does not excite me to that extent. So I think I also have an obligation to the company to always bring in fresh blood, to bring in people that have new ideas, to bring in people that get more excited than I do about projects coming in. For instance, I just think that a certain maturity of the company leads to that. So that's something as well that's going to be developing.
Let's say, for example, money is no object today. What would you do?
I would still be doing this.
You'd still be doing what you do.
Yeah, I would.
Nice.
I would.
And
it's very fulfilling. And if I can elaborate on that, like, the events and talent industry is a very addictive industry. Because we're not, like, the team and I, we are not public figures, right? But we get almost all of the benefits. You know, we go to all the fun events. We work with amazing people. Our clients are always excited to be working with the talents. They're excited to get the project going. Like, there's a start, there's a during, and there's an end. So it's a very satisfying industry. And the life becomes really big when you're always out and about, flying around on all these fun things. Like, it's an amazing thing to be part of. It's very creative. So it's a very seductive industry.
Yeah, you're only talking about the pros of the industry. I mean, there are cons, right?
100%. With everything.
Yeah, and I mean, but specifically in this industry where, you know, there are no specific time slots for working. Everything is like so blurry. You work on weekends. Plus, here comes the challenge. I mean, you're a mom.
Yeah.
You have 2 kids. Like, what do you do over there? Like, you have events on weekends. How do you manage all that? I mean, this is a cliche question maybe that a lot of people ask. And I feel that at this point, we as men all know that women can multitask very well. And I feel that a lot of working moms do have children, and they're maybe single moms, and they do work and kind of balance all this together. But do you feel that it compromises part of your ambition, or no? Are you still on track with that?
No, it does.
It does?
Yeah.
So you kind of have a ceiling.
Yeah, it changes. Your priorities change, right? Like, your time change, but your priorities change. Like, of course, I have the option. Like, I can leave my kids and I can go to the meeting. But the difference is that once you're a mom, you don't want to as much. You know, like, when you're weighing them, the weight of hanging out with your kids weighs heavy compared to going to a meeting. Like, it got to be a really good meeting for that.
Okay.
So I think the priorities change. I can just speak for myself. You know, it was, when you have children, it's the most wonderful thing ever, but it's also, especially as a high achiever, it's the scariest thing ever. It's like your world just flips upside down, you know? And it becomes very kid-centric. And again, by choice, like you're responsible for these little humans, you know, and you want to spend time with them. But I think for me as a company owner, I have flexibility as well. You know, I drop my kids to school and I make sure that I pick them up on most of the days. Like literally, I don't know how many I miss. It's not many because I want that little moment. And, you know, it's the same thing as blocking me out for a Zoom call every time on like at that specific hour. So yes, it's hard to balance. It's very hard to balance. I have help at home as well. So it's not as if I'm like a single mom doing everything.
Yeah, of course.
You know, but even if I were to have 5 people at home, my kids still want me.
Of course.
And I think, you know, I'm in a very privileged position, absolutely. And I'm so grateful for it. But I think a lot of the overwhelming feelings you feel as a mother is due to you wanting to be there for the kids. You know, you can hire somebody else to brush their hair, but you want to be there or they want you to do it. And I think that's the thing, that they always want you around. And maybe the mom guilt is actually hormonal. I don't know, like to a certain extent, because again, you can spend 7 days straight with your children and sleep in the same bed as them, super glue. But then after these 7 days, if you're like, hey, I'm going to go for a meeting, they'll be like, you never spend time with me. You know, like it's just kids. Like they love you the most thing in the world. Like,
Karin, we were talking before we kicked off the podcast about the way you build your clients and the way you build your business on like kind of the long-term approach. Like, how do you do that? You don't mind starting with a very small kind of ticket and then you grow. But does that mean if today a startup is, you know, listening and they're like, well, you know, I want to start with you and I have like an X, which is a very minimal budget. You don't mind actually taking that budget and kind of helping and adding value to that company to grow, and then later on they have bigger budgets?
Yeah, and I look long term. I mean, when I say long term, I evaluate clients based on, you know, how many events are they likely to do. I know a lot of companies target, and when we're talking specifically for events now, because as I said, for the talents, we only handle what comes in. So it's not really my effort. But of course, I also prioritize. Even if a company would come in, I always welcome business. But if I'm super busy then with bigger projects, I might not have the time to allocate towards them, right? But no, definitely. Like, and all of my event clients have been on referral basis. So I would literally get a call. Majid Al Futtaim, I got that way. Unilever, I got that way. You know, so I've just been very grateful. And I think that's because we over-deliver every single project we do. We just, you know, go as much in as we can. And because we're long-term, like I've had clients that have spent like, you know, on a smaller event, they spend like 250,000 dirhams, right? And then if that same client calls me and say like, hey, I need face paint and a balloon arch and something for 7,000 dirhams, like I'll still send the team and I'll be there for them because, you know, and I think when you create that relationship with a team and a client, like we can label it a client, but in the end, it's a human. It's somebody else that is looking for a promotion, that has a family at home, that has a job to lose. Like you're dealing with a human that has to trust you with all of these things.
You have a unique strategy in marketing your business.
I'm probably going to get a lot of shade for.
No marketing. Like incognito clients.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to say, like you said 2-3 names now, but like that's it. Yeah. Looking online, etc. What's the strategy? Like, why don't you... Like everybody's very fond of when they sign a client, they're like, we signed this client. They put on a press release.
Mabruk, good for them.
Yeah, but why don't you do that? Like, what's your take on promoting clients and kind of?
I've been very discreet with that, just because my clients are long-term. They have loads of activations and events consistently. There's absolutely no purpose for me to show that to my competition and give them an option to target my clients and spend face time with them. So that's why I haven't done it, and I keep busy with them. So it's a very curated feed.
But don't you think, like, just to challenge that idea, don't
ahead.
you think that the clients are already, out there and people are showing face with them, and they're not gonna, maybe not through you, but people are showing face with them?
I'm sure, but let's not give them more people.
No, but I mean, maybe they would attract more clients to you.
Yeah, it
like
could,
if you say, for example, a MAF is my client, like somebody maybe a bit smaller than MAF would say, well, I want to work with you because, you'd give me the same quality that MAF would get from you. Or
I think maybe it's luck, possibly, but because I've consistently been referred by my clients to other clients, that has been
working this way.
It's been a very effective business model, so for me it's worked. And for instance, a lot of the companies that go up against me on these, or even bigger ones, by all means, especially when it comes to event companies, like I don't even organize like big sporting events like marathons and stuff, so compared to them, I'm fairly small in the overall event industry, right? But there's a lot of companies there that you will never even see on Instagram, like none.
Of course.
And that does not change their P&L,
Has the event industry changed? Like, for example, if I would look at our industry, which is the production and media industry, the budgets changed from big linear budgets for TVs into smaller digital budgets. Today the TVs don't have the budgets they used to have a long time back. Has the event industry changed? But I see a lot of events, so this is my question.
I mean, I think budgets have definitely changed. I think the nature of what clients focus on as well have changed a lot. Experiential came in and just took over, right? But I think the event industry is so dynamic anyways, constantly. It's always evolving. A lot of tech is involved now, but I just think events is bound to always constantly evolve.
Especially with all the touristic destinations that are up and coming, like all this tourism that's happening, I feel events is just something that would never die.
No.
What is the latest technology in the event business now? Like, is it AR? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that depends on what aspect you're looking at. It's totally different if you go into the stage and holograms and all these things. Like the effects that they do versus production, and I'm talking like build-ups and things like or the photo booths, like everything is constantly renewing, right? But I think obviously tech infused elements are very popular, and I think it's going to stay that way.
Karin, did you get a point where you said, you know what, I'm done?
Many times.
Like, I know the event business is super hectic and constantly you're like, I'm done, I'm a mother, I just want to spend time with my kids, I don't need to do all this, and I just want to enjoy it. Did you get that? And
sure.
at what point, like, was it triggered by an event, or was it triggered by like just something happened, and how did you overcome it? Because you're still still in this.
Still here. Yeah. No, I think that's normal though. But I think for me, naively, I thought that I would be still very involved in the operational part and the creative part. And as the company grew, I realized that there were these other things that unfortunately I had to do as a company owner, like strategy and cash flow management and all these things, which is not exactly what I woke up and grew up thinking I wanted to do. So there were a lot of times where I felt like I was doing a lot more things that didn't fill me with fire, let's say. And when the pressure came on, like I had the first client that defaulted on a payment, or eventually they paid, but it took them 9 months.
Wow.
Oh,
painful.
That was like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? What do I do now? And it wasn't a small project either. And it's a person that you worked with, and they're like, oh, yeah, we'll just wait a bit, like that for me, it was almost it was humiliating, I felt, you know. That the first time, things like that, along the line, as you grow, you run into different problems. And that's when when the pressure's really on, that's when you feel like, oh my gosh, let me just take a 9 to 5.
And what brings you back?
Once you're
when they pay?
No, but it's just, you can't, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. You just can't stop
you've
yourself.
never thought of starting a new business outside the event, outside the same umbrella?
Well, yeah, I mean, I did set up a company during the pandemic because
Canvas.
Yeah, because obviously the event company took a nosedive, and I felt there was almost nothing I could do to help Curveball at the time. And I felt this need to create and build something. Maybe that's the thing that's innate in me, that I like creating. I like starting things. But I'm also quite good at executing. I'm good at pushing myself and just like, okay, even if I don't want to do this, sit up and do it. And I think that's a trait that you either have or you don't have, but you can definitely cultivate it and become someone who follows through.
I want to know about, you know, they say kids that are brought up in families that, you know, are artists or in the entertainment industry, they kind of tend towards that industry. Do you feel that any of your kids are, they like to go to the events, they kind of want to be close to that kind of industry, or are they doing their own thing and they're not really affected, or they don't even know maybe?
I mean, I think my kids are going to be really good in sales. I think they're already storytellers. I think they're already
you told me
funny.
Something the other time.
Yeah.
You can
Funny.
say it again. Yeah.
But I think when it comes to events, I'm not necessarily sure. You know,
would you want them to? Like, I mean, I know you would want them to do whatever they like.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind as long as they're happy. As long as they have some kind of purpose, I think that's important. And I don't believe in this love what you do what you love, like, because that only applies to a certain part of what you do. In my opinion, I think 80% of your job or what you do in a day is going to be tedious and stuff that doesn't really like excite you. But you got to find like the other 20% that should like set your soul on fire, because that 20% is what's going to drag you through the 80%, in my opinion. So I just hope that they find their 20%, you know, the thing that they really enjoy, that they would do even if they didn't get paid. That is what I hope they can find. Would you do
anything if you're not paid?
Huh?
Would you do anything if you're not paid?
I love working. I think it's so fun to come into an office, have banter, do fun stuff, you know, like it energizes me. I love being on projects. I love being around creative things. So yeah. And
you've never considered going out of Dubai? Like, no. Dubai is the forever home.
Oh, I love it here. I love it here.
So it's not like you're gonna maybe go back to Sweden or try to, you know, like, where do you see the future of your kids studying, for example?
Well, obviously, if they're moving somewhere else, I'm moving with them. Like,
okay.
I'll just, you know, super glue with them. But no, I love it here. Like, and I feel, for me, I came here when I was like, 21 years old, you know, some 21 or 22 almost. My entire grown-up life is here. My entire network is here. Why would I go home to Sweden? What am I going to do there? I love my family and my extended family. I would love to visit often, but there's nothing there for me. This is my home. You know, it's made me. It's shaped my entire like life. I built myself here. So no, and I love it. We have sunshine all the time. It's the most modern things, like, you know, the safety, like I can keep going. Why would I not live here?
What was like a question that your kids asked you lately that you were like, how do I answer that? Like, because I'm always I don't have kids, so I'm always kind of impressed by the questions kids shoot at us sometimes. Yeah. Specifically at parents. And I just want to know if you have those encounters with your children.
All the time, but I think maybe not questions, but they're very good at, you know, you know, they wouldn't wish me good luck for the podcast, for instance. You know, they do that to see how I would react, if I'm still going to be cool and confident, you know, or until I tell them like, hey, mommy would feel really good if you told me like, have a nice day, or if you gave me a hug now. Then they will, you know, or they will be like, why'd you pick those shoes? You know, it's this Roblox type of generation, right? Where they're like, they don't match. And I'm like,
thank you for the fashion
sweetheart,
tip.
you know? But I think kids, they just come out with the funniest things. Like when you were asking me about if I want them to work in the events industry, literally a few weeks ago when I was on the beach with my daughters, one of them goes, she's like, mommy, if you die, do I get curveball? And I'm like, sorry, what? Yeah, I guess you do.
It's yours from today.
You know? I'm like, and she's like, okay. I'm like, do you want curveball? Like, do you want? She's like, yeah, so I can sit and just make money. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Like,
does it make a lot of money?
We do all right.
Events,
we do all
do
right.
They make a lot of money?
We do all right, for sure. Yeah.
Do you go into weddings?
No.
Never.
We did a few, but it's not my niche.
So your niche is specifically corporate events, and you wouldn't like, for example, we do a lot of events in our entertainment business, but it's more like concerts, like.
No, I don't do organizing of
it's
events.
just pure corporate events.
Yeah.
One thing that Curveball is planning to do in the upcoming year, any plans to go overseas, any plans to expand, any plans on your end to start something new?
No.
Any risks?
No, and I think, again, coming back to my kids, they're 8 years old now. I think as a parent, you know, you have a certain amount of years before your kids start feeling like there's other things than mommy and daddy in the world. I think I only have like a couple of more years or 3 more years where they really want to do things with me as a mom, you know? So I am not going to do anything like I wouldn't open in Saudi, for instance, even if it would be a fantastic time for me to do that now, because I want to be able to have a slower pace and be a lot with them right now while I can. Because in a few years, they're going to want to hang out with their friends and I'm not going to be cool. I'm not going to be allowed to be around them because I'm embarrassing. You know, like I just want to really embrace these few years that I have left where they think it's amazing to hang out with me. So the company's going to be on the back burner until that happens.
That's a nice feeling to have. I feel it's also like, for example, me hearing you say that, I feel that there's a lot of emotions in what you're saying, and there's a lot of kind of resetting the right priorities in that sense. And then you would maybe kickstart it later before you can
always start over. You can always amp up the speed, and you can do that like in 15 minutes. I can decide to go into overdrive.
Yeah. Before you came in, I thought that the conversation would go or lean towards the business side of things. But as we started to talk, I felt that digging deeper into the kind of mom-like businesswoman is where I felt is really interesting, because it's not easy, but at the same time, you kind of get that pace and understand that balance, and you keep doing both with the right balance. Like for me, you have decided to put your job or your work on the back burner, and it's a very hard decision. Like I don't know if I can take that decision, or if any other person can. It's not an easy decision.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that do it, especially women, you know, if they are allowed the flexibility of that. But
why women? Like, don't you think like
men also, of course, to a certain extent? I'm generalizing now, so I apologize.
Yeah. But it's just no, it's fine. But I mean, do you think men are kind of selfish, that they don't want to put their jobs aside and prioritize?
No, I think men are better at compartmentalizing. I think they're really good at like, all right, I'm at work. Let me not think about the kids right now. I think men also still, even though, equality and all honor, but I still think that men have it ingrained in them to be providers, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But I just think for women, the role of a mother, maybe it's also, kids are more clingy with the mother, generally speaking, you know, and that shapes how we act, for sure, in business as well. And I think also, like, in my case, I have extreme flexibility with work hours, especially after the pandemic. It's like one of these silver linings. Because I realized
you do a 4-day work week, I read.
Yeah.
Optional for the 5th day.
Friday is optional, completely. I don't care what anyone does on Fridays, like if they're working or not. But as long as our level is where it's supposed to be, like you start missing emails and stuff, and I see, like, of course, then we have to have a talk. Like, come in on Fridays and finish what you have to do. Like, we're not, you know, like, we have old school values here. We work hard, yeah? But that's out of respect for the clients and the respect for the people we represent. But it's give and take in the end. Like, do I really have to have someone clock in 9 to 5 and not be flexible for them to pick up their kids from school?
Yeah, because have that you also moment? Feel it. You feel that flexibility.
100%. Or if they want to go for a school performance or something, we take away that life moment just to make sure that I get value because I'm paying someone. No.
There's a lot of ethics in what you do. I mean, the way you approach your business, there's a lot of ethics, values, sympathy, so to say, empathy, actually.
Yeah, empathy. I just think I love hustling. I love hard work. I respect it so much. But I also recognize that everyone has a life, you know? And I think as well, like, we sometimes don't think about it, but guys, we're going to die. Like, that's the only thing that's sure. How many summers do you have left with your parents? Like, you know, really, like, think about it, you know, it's wild. So, and you work with people 8 hours a day, sometimes more, you know, so maybe a little bit of flexibility so we don't miss these life moments is actually good. And then, you know, nobody's going to complain about picking up a call at 8 o'clock when the kids are already asleep, or responding to some emails at 9 or 10, like, whatever way you want to make it work, do that.
Very nice. I really enjoyed the conversation. I felt it was very relatable. On that note, I just want to end by saying, I mean, if you guys have a hustling mindset at the moment, go for it. But if you also feel that it's time to, you know, as Karin said it, put it on the back burner for a while and then reprioritize things that make you happier. That I think is the better thing to do when that mindset kind of shifts, and you can always go back to it because hustling also is fulfilling.
Oh, wildly, incredibly.
Thanks, Karin.
Thank you.
It was really fun and very heartful.